So, you know how I always say you never, I just don't get the really good old stuff at garage sales anymore. I reminisce all the time about the 90s and even the 80s. That's how old I am. When, there was vintage toys. They weren't really vintage back then. Well, in the 90s, I guess they were. Toys every garage sale, and you could just fill your car up, and records were abundant and blah. Um, it has changed a ton, but the stuff is still out there. And I got three really cool toys. Toys which, frankly, I'd never seen before in person. I didn't even know these ones actually existed. They're Marvel toys, superhero toys from 1968, and they are amazing. I knew that there was a version of them, and I'll get into it later when I'm showing you them. But these I'd never seen before. Again, it was pretty amazing to find these just sitting in a garage sale because that happens. I also got some records. I picked up piece of mid-century furniture, mid-century modern furniture, um, and lots of magazines. Which I said I was going to stop by, but I just can't because I love the damn things. And some of them, they have some value. Not a great deal, but some. We'll go over that. I got some cool other things, old rugby balls, some antique pieces as well. So we'll get into that now. Well, not right now because somewhere sitting around here, and I can't remember where I put it. This is a problem when you have a store like this. You put something out, it disappears. I had a breakfast sandwich and a coffee, and I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Look at this place. I love this place, but yeah, sometimes it's a little hard. I'll probably find it at around 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Anyways, I digress. Let's go see the stuff. Okay, so this is stuff. It's dark in here, and I'm going to turn on some lights. How's this for quality production work? Look at that. There you go. Yeah, let's turn these ones on too. Why not? Oh, that's better. Well, somewhat better. So, yeah, the first garage sale that I hit was a church run sale. They have this, it's kind of a rural church here in Dunnville, Ontario. Something fell. Um, they let people set up. And I think it's, yeah, you can set up so long as you make a donation. And lots of people come and sell stuff. It's like a multi-vendor garage sale, closer to like a flea market also, almost. And they do it once every year. It got rained out last week, and so they did it this week. And I never get huge things. One year I got a bunch of wrestling figures, which was kind of good, but I usually pick up a few little things here and there. So I'll just show those first. I'm going to have to do a bunch of different edits because I don't have the room for everything that I got. There was one vendor there who clearly was either an antique collector or possibly a dealer at some point. And because he had a bunch of really good stuff, old cameras, some older clothing. And I picked things like this up, and they're reasonably priced. $4 for an early chrome shaker. It's got a few dents and stuff like that. I actually kind of like that. It shows that it has some age. I haven't taken the top off, so I'm not going to do that right now. It's one hand. This is something that I absolutely love. It is, when I first saw it, I saw it down and thought, wow, that's like an interesting older football, but I realized it's a rugby ball. Hand stitched, handmade. I don't know, it's got Brentwood on there, which might probably have been a school back in the day, probably pre-1950s by the looks of it and the manufacturer. Great piece of old leather. Don't know if it's going to be able to be blown back up again, though. I'm going to give it a try, but it was only $5, so I thought, why not? And then this is nice. This is an fairly early shaving stand. And so you have your little mercury mirror there, which obviously, has some wear and things. I haven't cleaned it or anything. Yikes, you got to see my face on that. And then it has this, which would have held your shaving cup. And then this, which would have held your shaving brush. So you lather the two up right there, and away you go. It was only $3. This one, it does have a marking on it, Apollo. I haven't sort of looked that up to see what it's all about. But I would figure that this is probably, I love that little, look at that, mechanics on there. it'll clean up. It'll never be perfect, but that's actually kind of a good thing. I tend now to find there are so many small barbershops starting up again. And it's great to see. And they all want sort of vintage decorator items from that time period. And I imagine that somebody will probably want that for this. If not, it's just a cool little decorator piece. Won't bring in too much money, like probably around 40 bucks, maybe a bit more if I do some research on it. But in the shape that it's in, but it's a cool piece that'll sell pretty quickly. So I was glad to pick that up again, just $3. Looks like they had $1 underneath there and taped 3 over. I don't know. I don't care either way. I'm happy with that. So then I did go to another garage sale once I went through that. Oh, what else did I get from there? There was one thing. Yeah, I got this. I'll bring this in. $5, but it is a 1997 T-Rex model. Is sealed in the bag. You still never put together. And so again, it's another $35, $40 piece. Jurassic Park Lost World stuff. It seems to come in waves. The JP toys seem to go, everybody loves dinosaurs, and then I can't keep enough of it in, and then it kind of slows down again. So I pick it up all the time. And then this was also there. It's only a few dollars, but it's I consider the best captain of all time. I always consider Daryl Sittler for the Leafs. I'm sure everybody has theirs from their generation. For me, it's Sittler, but you gotta hand it to Ricky Vive. He was there during some tough years, and he had an outstanding career. And this was actually signed to Olive, best wishes, and it's from Rick. And then it's a Nabisco sort of promotional photo. The lady I got it off said her mother was a huge Leafs fan, and she went and lined up, and she thinks it was at a Canadian Tire, which would be weird with the Nabisco brands thing, but you never know, could be. Definitely authentic signature. It's especially when you're looking at autographs, generally, if it's to somebody, I mean, I know that can be faked as well, but it doesn't matter because I'll probably end up keeping this just because I've got a collection of the Leafs captains autographs going at the moment, so may as well keep that going. So I went to another garage sale. And it just piles of magazines. There are people on eBay who make a living just cutting up magazines, vintage magazines, and putting the ads on. I don't do that, but that's an option. There are also magazines that sell. Some of them can sell for significant money. 90% of them don't. But I can't stop buying things. My whole time of having the store and collecting, I've always bought them, because you don't have to think in terms of like, you know, the collectability of the magazine itself. It's usually who's on the cover. The cover is where, if you will, the money is. And so she had these 5 boxes, and I asked her how much, and she said, well, do you want a box? And I'm like, I don't know. And I said, just give me a price on each. And she said, well, it probably won't be more than 50 cents a piece. So I was like, okay, magic number, under $1, here I go. And I got some great things out of it. I just realized I had one of the best pieces not in here, and I'll show you that after. But this is a pretty cool one too, because Maclean's was a Canadian magazine. Every Canadian home got it for a while. It was just sort of the thing we all read. And this is cool. This is 1978, and it's Rush. And I'll probably guarantee you that is probably one of the earliest cover stories that Rush ever got, or it's pretty close to it. And some of these Maclean's magazines can go like between $50 and $100 for some of them. There was one there I was looking that was like the 3 Montreal Canadiens with Bellevaux, Richard, and Guy Lafleur on the cover. It had sold over 100 on eBay. So, you know, lots of Rush fans out there. I don't know what it's worth, but I'm sure it's worth something. This is kind of cool. It's 1966. I love these little government documents. This one's in rougher shape, and at some point it sold for $1 to somebody, but it's just cool. It's about the Indians of Quebec and the Maritime Provinces, Indigenous folks. this is from the Indian Affairs branch. It's an official government document, so I love that stuff. I'll go through it all day long. I don't know if I'm going to go through every single one on here, but some of the highlights. There's another McLean's with Gordon Lightfoot on the front, and that's it again. You don't think in terms of McLean's magazines. You think in terms of the content of it. So this one's a Star Weekly, 1939, the visit of the King of England to Canada, which at the time was like a huge deal. These biker magazines like Easy Rider and things like that, people always want them. This one I bought because its baseball comes to Hogtown, which is the one of the nicknames of Toronto, and it was when the Blue Jays came, and I'm a huge Blue Jays fan. Ballard with the Leafs. You can just sort of go through them there. That's Conrad Black. There's Guy Lafleur cover. More things. Indigenous. Anne Marie. Yeah. But then there's things like this in here too, which is like, the War Illustrated. And that's just such a, great image. Somebody's going to be interested in that. And then there's printed matter in here. Like that's got a lot of like shooting targets and stuff like that on there. Old photography magazines, car magazines, homes, more art and photography, computer magazines, old girly mags. I got a ton of these Omnis. I love Omni. It was one of the best sort of sci-fi magazines that was out there. You have some of the best. It has a lot about technology. The other thing that's in here, the ads for some of the stereo equipment that is in here are usually really great. The car ads are pretty cool too. And it ran from the 70s through to the 1980s. Arthur C. Clarke, all the big futurist writers, all published in here. So there's a stack of those in there. I'm going to pause it for a second because I'm going to have to move and bring up the other stack of stuff. You know what, I'll just spin over here. So these were all Playboys, and they range from the couple in the 1950s through to the 1990s even. And there's a stack of them in there. There's a few other girly mags. I'm not going to go through them because, Facebook and naked lady parts, they don't go together very well. They don't like that. So that was a big stack in there. And you see that box, I don't know how many's in there, like 30 or so. And I'll pause this now and I'll show you the rest in a second. Okay, so here is the rest of those magazines. We'll do like a quick slip through. I got a couple here. So I love these old detective magazines. The artwork on them is fantastic. They were pretty gory. They were kind of on the edge, on the fringe. Really great advertising on the inside. I just love these kinds of things. And some of them to go for like big bucks. But even here, look at this. It's old Lee jeans advertising. Again, I don't cut them up, but somebody who would be willing to do that is, probably you could sell that for $10 on its own. Here's another one of those for men only. Look at that. That just looks great. This one is really interesting. It's Ben Weider, who was a world champion bodybuilder and a great businessman, because he's the man who basically put bodybuilding, Charles Atlas was there too, but into the mainstream. And he trained and discovered a lot of the guys who went on to become Mr. Universes, including that guy right there. See him? Recognize him? That's Arnold. He's going to pump you up. That was terrible. I don't know why I even try that stuff. But yeah, it's like his little pamphlet for his advertising. There's a picture of him with Trudeau, the first one. And yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. Plus the Arnold thing. Now, I've seen a bunch listed at 50 plus. I don't think it'll ever sell for that much. But, considering it was just, something cool to pick up. And then more of these McLean's with Kenzo's a fashion designer. The first Trudeau, Khomeini, anything to do with drugs or drug wars, they're good things. Levesque, which is, interesting. Canadians. Jesse Barfield, like, he is my Blue Jay. Like, that was my era of Blue Jays. I still love the Jays, but still. That has some interesting stuff in there too. It's some cool, these were newspaper supplements, but they got great ads in them too. Just a couple of camera things, which she looks familiar. And a lot of times, excuse me, early models and movie stars started out modeling for things like this. So this is December 56. I loved that cover. I just think that's great. And then just a bunch of Life magazines, which again, you look at the back, Camel advertising, and these ones are really good for that sort of thing. Lucky Strikes. This one's cool because it's got Roy Rogers on the cover, Camel on the back, Paul Newman on there. I mean, that's starting to get into the 60s. Kennedy, some other things. This is one that's kind of cool. Look at that Coke ad. Yeah, it's a bit creased up, sadly, but cool Coke ad on there. Norman Mailer and a thing on Woodstock. And then there was a Vargas, Alberto Varga book there too, so I grabbed that as well. So that is it in terms of the magazines. I'm going to show you guys the toys that I got. That's the big deal. I'll show you those in just a second. Okay, so this is the toy. Pretty non-discrete box. Honestly, could have walked right by it. And it says on the side here, mechanical set of 3 tricycles made in Japan. And that is it. It is just your plain white box. When you open it up, and the lady showed me this, and she started pulling these out. And I was like, at first, I was like, oh, baby toys. No, there's Thor. And then the last one is Cappy. There he is there. And these, the first thing you'll note is, are in immaculate condition. I mean, the paint on them. I don't think these were ever played with, honestly. The bodies are plastic. This is lithograph tin. They were all made in Japan. They're all wind up, and there you can see the Marx company information there, and it's on each of them. Now, I knew a bit about, because I'd seen them before, there were little cars by Marx that had superheroes' heads on them, similar to this, but I'd never seen these before. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't know if these were actually, like, good or not, but either way, I was like, I want them, because they're just really cool. And the wind-ups, I'm not going to do it because I don't like winding them up. The wind-ups do work on them, and as you can see here, they spin, and you move them around, little feet go, and they make an annoying noise. Each one of them is the same. These are probably, these were 1968. I found out later. And yeah, I'll let you guys do the comp work on these, because it is, just search up Marx tricycles. Some of the asking prices are ridiculous. I mean, there's one on there for a beat up one of this. The guy's asking $900. It is never going to sell. That just isn't going to happen. But probably closer to the $100 mark is probably close. And I picked these up for $15 for the 3. And so yeah, again, it's one of those surprise things where you're there and you have an idea like, yeah, these are good, like they're cool, and I wanted them just because I love Marvel stuff, but you just don't know sometimes, and I didn't in this case. And so it was like a super nice surprise to pick these up. They are you're probably $300 to $500, I would say, in this condition. I'm not 100% because, again, you never know until you sell them, but they are just super cool, and the condition's great, and I'm not going to sell these. Like, these are just going, as soon as I saw them, I'm like, yep, well, there we go. I'm going to have to make some more room on the shelf, because these things, you just, again, it's the kind of thing you just don't find it anymore. Not out in the wild like that. Like, that just rarely happens. And even if you do find them, like, I've been going to shows and things for like 40 years, and I don't remember coming across these. They were super cheap when they were originally made. These were the things that would have been sold in like the 5 and dimes, or for those who don't, were before their time. It's five and dimes were basically the discount stores similar to Dollarama when everything was still $1 at the Dollarama. And there are lots of toys back then that would have just been throwaway stuff, but now are fairly collectible. And these would have been it. I mean, they got a lot going for them. There's versions of these apparently that were done Rat Finks, done with Big Daddy Roth's characters and artwork made into these figures. And people collect Marx stuff alone. So this got a lot going for it. It's a lithograph tin toy, which people collect. It is a Japanese one. It is a wind-up, which again is another whole thing that people collect. And obviously the biggest thing it's got going for it is Marvel superheroes. So a lot of people want it. Now, here's the thing. Some of the ones that you see online have a different box from this. They came in a box that had colored artwork on it showing each of the superheroes, or all three actually on different sides. But they were only sold one at a time. Now this clearly says on it, set of 3 tricycles. So they must have also came in this format. I can probably lost in, the fog of time why some came with the boxes and others didn't. But either way, like, that's just super cool. And I can't wait to put these up with all of my other toys because I'm a big Peter Pan man boy. So I'll show you the rest. Got a few more things to show you here. So, yeah. Okay, so again, because I was a child of the 70s and the 80s, I have a great love for these huge, wide skateboards. There's the 70 stack. These are in the store for sale, but I have a bunch that I kept for myself. And then these, because I love the graphics on it. Now, obviously, the big ones you're always looking for are major companies like Santa Cruz and, even Vision and things like that. But these ones were sort of the discount one, and they have really cool graphics. Now, I can't find a company name on this. I was actually expecting it to be Dominion Street, which is a Canadian skate company who did these really good and also really cheesy artwork on the bottom, which I just love. I've kept all those ones. My first skateboard was a Dominion Street skateboard. It was Firefly, and for those who are the similar age to me and you live in Canada, you probably all started out with that, unless, your parents were a little more well off and you ended up getting like, a really fancy something from California, which, first of all, there weren't skate shops back in Ontario back when I was starting. There were one, or I think there was one in Toronto. But by the time the 80s, end of the 80s rolled around, they were everywhere. But back in the day when I first started, you couldn't get Santa Cruz decks. It was, Pal Peralta, all those things. They weren't around. So you started off with something similar to this, which is still pretty cool. I mean, this one's beat, but I like that graphic. Dagger. It's just badass. Look at that snake. He's gonna bite you. So then the other thing I got at the magazine garage sale that I was referencing earlier, sitting in a box was a whole bunch of National Geographic. Now, I avoid National Geographic like the plague. They're a great magazine, fantastic things, but they just have zero value. Some of the space ones do, I'm not going to lie, the moon landing ones, because there's such iconic photography and great images in them. Some of them have maps that people do collect, and some of the Egypt ones from the 70s are also pretty amazing too. But in that box, none of that was there. But I noticed what the box was sitting on, which was this great chair. It is to be done in the style of, let's say, Mart Stam, who was a Bauhaus designer. Marcel Breuer is another one who used the tubular chrome, again at the Bauhaus. And this one, I think, is in the style of it. Definitely isn't. I haven't found any marks. I was hoping maybe I would find an Italian made in Italy mark on there, because a lot of these were reproduced from the originals, because I think the original design for this, and again, people who are I used to be heavily into mid-century modern. I still love it, but I don't do the kind of reading that I used to do, and my memory is not that great, but I can't remember exactly when this stamp chair was made. But I believe it was probably in the late 20s, early 30s. It was revolutionary design because, first of all, you're using tubular chrome, which was fairly new, and you were able to bend it in unique ways. And they're just, I think, beautiful chairs. I mean, I know a lot of people who hate chairs like this, but I love it. But there is no label markings on this. But it is okay, in pretty good shape, salvageable for certain. It has the nice thing that caught my eye, I think, first of all, was the fact that I can't tell if this is teak or rosewood. I'm leaning a little more to rosewood, but probably more than likely it was teak on the arms. You know, again, it was great. Thing she said $15 for the chair, so yeah, I took that. Even just a reproduction's, you know, going to be worth more than that. And worst case scenario, I can always keep it for myself. And then the last thing that I got at the garage sales was this. It was $5. It is an 8-track player. 8-track holder for your 8-track cassettes, and a bunch of like 2 head cleaners and a bunch of sealed blanks, and then some blanks here that have recordings on them. The only reason I got this was because I have this, which I haven't really put up on my Instagram or advertised. Most people walk by it, which right now I'm okay with because I'm kind of in love with it. It is an 8-track player. It is a floor model with a flip top. Look at Sly Stone. Look at him. God, if I could have been anybody in the 70s, that would have been him. From a company called Winford Hall, who I'm not super familiar with, but this thing flips down and it just looks like your sort of cube that would sit at, you know, somewhere in the house. And then it needs a good cleaning, and there's paint splatters on the top of it, but it plays marvelously. You got the 8-track player in there and the radio. It's got its own speaker that sits on the bottom and blasts down, and it is super cool. And whoops, I almost dropped the phone. That's not good. And you know what? I'm going to probably this week list it on the store Instagram page and the Facebook page and Facebook Marketplace and all those things. By the way, if you're interested, the store is called Time Capsule. It is in Dunnville, Ontario. I've been here, next year will be my 20th year that I've been open doing this. Yikes. And feel free to drop by, but I will put the links to the store pages, either the Facebook or the Instagram. And I post the store hours up in there, and I post stock on there, and blah, 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 blah. You can see. But I'm going to probably pair these two up because they've got that same faux wood grain thing on there, and just a little added bonus for somebody else who buys that, which, you know, I think is great. Oh, you know what? I just remembered something. I got records too. I forgot that. I'll go back and show you the records now. I am not good at this. Okay, so technically not picked up at a garage sale, but these were brought in by somebody into the store, which is kind of one of the bonuses, a few bonuses, of having a brick and mortar location, especially one that I've had as long as I have. And he just brought them in, and he said they'd been, you know, sitting in storage at his parents' place, and they were going to toss them out, and he was like, oh, forget it, I know a place, I'll take them and see if he wants them. So he brought them in. And I went through them, and obviously you can see I put the 2 best things at the front. This Warrant record is getting harder and harder to find. I didn't realize how much the price has gone up on it. I knew that it was always at some pricing, but like there's the median on it's probably around $35, but, and this is where the struggle begins. There hasn't been one that's been listed as sold for a while, and there are like 3 that are up for sale, and they start at 80 and go higher. It's not worth that, but I'm going to go through like PopPsych and see, because PopPsych's better because it seems to scrape and give you a more realistic thing than Discog's a better sort of idea. eBay is one of the best for that because you can just check the last sales in the last year to give you a better idea of where the market is at now, so that, you know, you're not overcharging, but you're not leaving money on the table either. And, you know, the market with records, just like anything that anybody wants, changes over time. But still, great pickup for that. We'll go through it here. The other one that was in there is Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. I have a real connection with this record as a kid. I remember getting this, and my parents just hated it. My parents were really cool about stuff. They didn't, but I knew they didn't like the Iron Maiden, and I was young, and I'm probably sure they thought I was going off the down the wrong path. But I guess I did in the end. Look where I am. But this, is a highly desirable record again. Sadly, somebody's written on it, but somebody will still want that anyways. But those are the two best out of it. There's still some okay stuff in here, and we'll go through them really quick. Lots of disco, a Mini Pops record, more disco, stuff that will get donated, a Beach Boys record. These little comps, I've actually seen people started buying these off me recently. But a lot of this stuff is not great. What I did was I pulled out about 5 or 6, including these. There's a Duran Duran. I think I pulled out the Boney M and the Thriller and the ABBA and that and Genesis and Beverly Hills Cop and Journey, as well as the Maiden and the Warrant, and just sort of said, I'll give you $50 for those. He was like, okay, I just want to get rid of them all. And I was like, I'm only interested. And so I think he said, well, I'll tell you what, how about $80 for the rest? And so I didn't feel like arguing with him. It wasn't an argument. It was just thinking. He was a super nice guy. And I just said, you know what? Sure, why not? It works out to like 50 cents a record. A lot of these are going to end up in my dollar bin or just straight up donations. But there's a lot of stuff on here. Things like this. I've noticed compilations have started, like I said, for some reason, people have started buying them again. I don't know if it's straight up nostalgia. But yeah, there's interesting stuff in there, and I'll just finish going through. This doesn't have one in there, sadly. Gordo, Dirty Dancing, Springsteen. This, I forgot about that, is actually pretty cool, which this one will probably stay in my collection. Second Bloodstone record I've got in 2 weeks, and I hadn't any before that, so I want to give that a listen myself. Flashdance, these are probably more the ones that are going to end up getting donated. Not the Hit Express. Go West. Swing Out Sister. But yeah, that's it. So nothing spectacular in there, except maybe that Warrant record, which is kind of nice. And that probably, between that and the Iron Maiden, will probably cover everything and the, little bit of money to be made from the rest. So yeah, that is it. That was this weekend. Actually, just Saturday. That's just the way it goes sometimes. So lots of good garage sale finds, incredible toys. I'm just babbling at this point, so I'll cut it off. Hope you all are able to find some cool stuff when you're out there looking. And if you do, and again, I don't know because I'm old, if there's a way for you to put pictures of stuff you find in the comments, feel free to do that. I love looking at other people's finds. So there you go. If you like this kind of stuff, you don't have to subscribe. I got a lot of what I consider a lot of subscribers now. But if you do, that's cool. I'd like that. Throw a like, put a comment in there, and all the other stuff the kids say. All right, bye.